Hey beauties, welcome back to Real Girl Talk Podcast Radio. I am your host, Cherie Burton. I'm a medical professional, business leader, author, speaker, and adversity recovery expert, bringing you fascinating guests, business, beauty, and lifestyle tips to help you create a beautiful life, and always committed to keeping it real. Now let's dive in. Welcome back to Real Girl Talk. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Cherie. It's a beautiful day today, and I have a beautiful lady with me, Cherie Burton. She is a pioneer spiritual psychologist whose evolutionary stand, speak, shine method transforms women into authentically embodied and empowered feminine leaders. Ooh. As a mother of six, author, international speaker, and host of Women Seeking Wholeness podcast, she was also crowned Mrs. Utah in 2004 and has become a skilled mentor in speaking, beauty, and queenly secrets. Welcome to the show, Cherie.
Thanks, Cherie. I love the way you spell your name.
Yes, so Cherie and I spell our name exactly the same, but she is Cherie and I am Cherie because my mother did that to me, but that's okay. I love Mama. She listens to my podcast, so she's going to get on to me if I don't say anything sweet about my mama is wonderful. She just messed me up on the spelling of my name. Cherie, I love this. You're a spiritual psychologist. So you know my first question, right? What in the heck is a spiritual psychologist?
Okay, well, it's a phrase that I didn't necessarily coin, but at the same time, it fits me to a T. So I just put the two words together. So it's more like I'm a traditional background in psychology. So that's my degree. I've worked in clinical settings like at psychiatric hospitals and addiction recovery centers and behavioral centers for teens as a counselor. But I lost a sister to suicide in 2005, and she left behind 5 children. And so as soon as I lost her, I went out of clinical because my sister was on over a dozen medications, had tried everything traditional and clinical herself, only to grow worse. I saw the same thing happening in traditional settings. So I decided to branch out and go more holistic. It's a little deeper than that. It's mind, body, spirit. So I feel like the component of your soul or your spirit is so integral to your healing. And so I have always been really focused on spirituality, not just being religious or anything, but just really getting to the heart and soul of who we are to help us heal. So in a nutshell, that's spiritual psychologist. It's almost like an oxymoron because in the psychology field, they don't like to bring in spirit. Right. They just like to make it about clinicians and what have you. Yeah. So I would probably get in trouble for using that phrase in more traditional settings, but that's what I'm claiming.
So let's talk a little bit about spiritual healing, because I actually I feel that I am a spiritual person, and I don't mean that so much from a, I guess, quote unquote, religion standpoint. I am a Christian and I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I stand behind that, but I also have a spiritual connection. So you know that my son passed away 13 years ago, and I feel in my heart, and some people may think I'm crazy, but everybody that knows me doesn't care what I think about other people thinking about me. If I say that right, I don't care about other people's perception of me because I know who I am. I'll put it like that. Yeah. But I feel a very strong spiritual connection ever since my son passed away. I don't know what that is. I don't know where that comes from, but I have a relationship with my Lord. My routine every morning is to get up, and I travel quite a bit. So whether I'm traveling or I'm at home, I get up and I have I call it my empowerment time, because it could either be I'm listening to something spiritual, I'm listening to someone preach, or I'm actually listening to someone just do an inspirational podcast or talking about something that gives me knowledge and fills me up in some way. And I do this every morning because I believe that what we put in, my mom always says garbage in, garbage out, right? So I believe whatever we take in, we also put out there to other people in the world. So let's talk about the healing aspect of it with the mind, body, and soul.
So healing is a lot of people are afraid of it. And that's why a lot of people aren't healing. I
Mm,
would say, especially in religious settings, you would think that that would be like everyone would be like, oh, but we get really hung up on it. We feel like we have to jump through all these hoops and be worthy enough, or we have to do things just right, or God's not going to help us, and that kind of thing. But honestly, it's the state of our hearts. It's the state of our hearts that help us heal. Now, that doesn't mean a pure in heart person can't be sick. What it does mean is that when we are connected to our own divine soul, because there's God, and that's a huge mystery. We're not seeing anything happening on the other side. I have an angel that passed on. It's my sister. You have your son. A lot of people have lost loved ones, and they have faith that there's the reality of the soul, the eternal nature of the soul. We have that living in us, and it's directly connected to God. However, people want to define God. I believe there's a feminine aspect to God as well. I don't understand it either, but I've spent a lot of my life studying things like the divine feminine, ancient mother, goddess temples all over the world. Like every book on Mary Magdalene you can possibly imagine I've read, only because I'm like you. I have this component to me that wants to learn, wants to have knowledge. I listen to podcasts, I read books, I do all these things because my soul hungers to know more.
right.
And your mom taught you garbage in, garbage out. My mom taught me something very similar, and that is knowledge is power. Not power in a like dominating sense, just if you want to be empowered, take knowledge in, and good knowledge, good
Mm,
things that edify and enlarge you. So emotional healing is very much connected to our physical body. It's kind of it's the bridge between our physical body and our spiritual self, our spirit, you could say. So our emotions, so 90% of your behavior is driven by your subconscious mind.
mm,
And that subconscious is your emotional body, is what we say. It's the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. So we have all these beliefs and things we've inherited, and all these things people told us when we were a kid, and all this programming living in us. And it's not always rising to the surface, but it definitely affects our behavior.
mm,
So we get triggered, by something. Someone will just say something in passing, and we'll be like, whoa, and it's
right.
like, where is this coming from? And it's because there's so much going on underneath the surface. And so we just are being driven. It's like we're in this car and it's driving us until we are aware, until we wake up that are we can be in the driver's seat. The soul can be in the driver's seat. We can
Mm-hmm,
be the presence behind all those thoughts and all that rumination. So
right.
healing to me is the first step, is just to be aware, to wake up. You're not the victim of what's happening underneath. Like, you are the master and commander of your body, and I'm talking your soul.
Well, and it
And
sounds like you're talking a lot about accountability too,
yeah.
and being accountable for what comes out of your mouth
Hmm.
and your thoughts. I was listening to a talk this morning that was very similar in what you're saying, and that what she was saying was we also can control the joy that we feel in everyday ordinary things, because some people think, I'll be happy when,
Yeah.
I'll do this when everything happens this way, or they're struggling to get out of bed, or they're complaining because they have to unload the dishwasher, or they have to do all these things. And in every ordinary day life, we should be thankful, because when we don't, and it's a cliche, oh, let's just give gratitude. But it's the way that she was putting it was, when you really change your thought process and
Hmm.
not be so negative about things, and realize that there's gratitude behind everything. Someone struggling to get out of bed because they're just tired should be grateful that they have 2 feet to stand up on. My
Yeah.
son was in a horrible, horrible motocross accident. He rode national motocross, and for 9 months, my 16-year-old could not walk. And for a couple of months, we didn't know whether we were going to have to amputate his foot. And so
Mhm.
he is extremely grateful for where he is today, because you would not know, him walking down the street, that the bottom part of his leg looks like a shark bit him after
Mhm.
6 surgeries and 2 skin grafts. But his sock covers up most of it, and he walks wonderful. He plays basketball. He works out in the gym. And and he's
Mhm.
great. But for 9 months, all he wanted to do was be able to walk to the kitchen and fix a plate of food and go sit down. And he couldn't do
Mm.
that because he had to have a walker. So someone had to help him in the bathroom, help him in the shower, feed him. And until you're in that situation, no one thinks about the feet that they have to walk on the ground and be gratitude and have gratitude for that. But so I totally get what you're saying, that you have to have this interconnection and know and feel grateful in order to have some type of healing and emotional joy, even out of bad situations. Because everybody says, well,
Yeah.
there's always something good out of it. And for the longest time, Cherie, I thought, don't tell me that, because there's nothing good that's going to come from me burying my 17-year-old son, who was absolutely the joy in so many people's lives. And
Mhm.
it took many years, and for God to put a mirror in front of me and said, if you'll give this to me, I'll show you the purpose behind your pain. And
Mm.
it was a struggle. It was a struggle. And I'm not saying that I don't have my days. Of course I do. He's my son.
Mhm.
But I call them my Bryant days. And I know when I'm there, I know when I'm having them. Mother's Day, Christmas Eve, there are certain days that trigger uh, my Bryant days. And even though I know that there's a purpose behind my pain, I'm still human, and I still miss my son dearly. So I totally get what you're saying, and what I want to know is women. So let's kind of shift this a little bit. And you were talking about the feminine aspect. There are women now that, there's a lot about the empowerment movement and women empowering women. And I was saying this long before, you know, some women got on the train with, really trying to empower other women. And are they truly doing that? And are they truly strong and empowering themselves? But what I have found, and I know that you have too, is some of the strongest women that put on the most confidence actually are the ones that are hurting the deepest. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Strong women do suffer. Everyone suffers. It's just our human condition. And I mean, actually, suffering is optional. Pain is mandatory. We're gonna
Mm,
feel pain. It's part of life. But coming back to what you were saying before about gratitude, gratitude is a magnifier. So if you wanna come out of something, like you said, if you want to shift, it's almost the highest calibrated emotion there is praise and gratitude. So it's kind of like, but I also have to add to that, I think a lot of women suffer because we beat ourselves up because we're feeling a certain way and we can't snap out of it, or we don't know how to not feel that way, or we just get so bogged down by a certain way to be. And so there's a term called spiritual bypassing.
hmm,
And what that means is that, oh, I feel angry today. Oh, well, I gotta get this anger away. I gotta like put a smile on. I've gotta, breathe. I gotta do all these things. Well, all of those practices are helpful, but sometimes you just have to be angry. Sometimes you have to go into the emotion to come out of it. So
mm,
there's a phrase, the only way out is through. And I know because you've been through the stages of grief, you understand this. I've lost my firstborn daughter at 3 days old. I've lost my sister to suicide. I found my grandfather when he passed away. I've lost four babies through miscarriage. So I've walked through grief, and not just losing loved ones that are very dear to me, but I almost divorced my husband of 25 years. We were separated 10 months. We almost said goodbye to each other, and that was very ripping. So what I'm saying is this emotional roller coaster that we're on. The roller coaster can be less highs and less lows when we put the seatbelt on and say, kind of what you were saying about surrender, like, I'm just going to give this, I don't know if it was when we were actually being recorded or when you said it to me before we recorded, but you just got to give it to God or give it to a higher
mhm,
power or give it away, because you don't know how in your body with your limited abilities and knowledge to
right.
even get through that. So what I'm saying is spiritual bypassing is when we just put on that happy face and we bust through it and we deny the emotion and we stuff it and we swallow it down, when actually if we were to ride that emotion and we were to put the seatbelt on and just say take me, we will get through it quickly and it won't be stuffed down. So
Right.
there's this saying like it takes actually more energy to push something down or repress it or suppress it than it
Mm-hmm.
does to express it. So
Mm.
so expression could be gratitude, but it could be extreme anger. And both of those are spiritual because they live in you and they're in you and they've got to find a way to come out. Now,
Right.
we don't hurt people in the process and we have that accountability that you spoke of. We're not vomiting ourselves on someone else.
Right.
We're working through it in our private chambers. We're working through it in our body temple. So I just wanted to say that it's okay to feel the array of these emotions. Emotional healing is about, again, the only way out is through. There's an analogy that I absolutely love. I live in the Mountain West, and buffalo. When you put buffalo and cows together in a storm coming, cows will try to literally outrun the storm, and you can imagine cows trying to run, right?
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo, they barrel into the storm when there's a storm coming. And so the buffaloes actually get through the storm a lot quicker, but the cows are like super tired in the storm and then they cannot outrun that storm, but they think they can. So we want to
Mm-hmm.
be buffalo. If we're going to be warrior women, we want to be buffalo women where we literally, okay, here we go.
Well, I can tell you, I definitely don't want to be a cow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, I'm just for strong women, we think there's strength in being that cow. And we just run and run and run and it's on our back and we got our babies and our calves. But those buffalo, they're like, here we go. Here we go, babies. Let's run through that storm.
Yeah.
And so those buffalo calves learn very, very young that they don't try to outrun that storm. They head into it.
When we're talking about the strong women aspect and you women being, we have to be like buffaloes and not like the cows, and we have to head through whatever's coming our way because all of us have to deal with adversity. And like you said, you almost divorced your husband of 25 years. I know there's women right now that says, oh, let's talk about that, because there are women that have been married for many, many years, and for whatever reason, and we all have our own, we get to a point to where we feel that that's going to be a better option, is to divorce our husbands or leave our husbands, or we think that life is going to be better outside of that box that we're in, or outside of that normal that we have created for that many years. And how do you heal? So let's talk about that strong woman who is very independent right now, is listening, and she is just teetering whether she should stay in a marriage of, let's just say, 15 plus years.
Mhm.
And she has children, and she feels that she's strong, but she's not strong enough to weather that storm,
Mm-mm.
because this most storms have been weathered as them together, right? And to the point to where, for whatever reason, somebody wants to divorce or walk away from a relationship. How does that person, what would you say to that woman to give her the strength to actually know whatever she decides, she is
Mhm.
going to be that same person? You're going to be a strong woman in the marriage, you're going to be a strong woman outside the marriage. I think some
Yeah.
women think that the man gives them that strength. What do you say to that woman to help her get through?
Yeah, it's so hard because every case, every marriage, and every dynamic is so different. For my husband and I, we have all these babies, kids, and right now we have three college kids and a 12-year gap and a 6 and a 7-year-old, and that's a whole other story. But same marriage, same set of kids.
We didn't get to
But
change the kids along the way.
oh, yeah, there's literally 12 years between kid 3 and kid 4. And so
Mm,
kid 3's senior year was kid 4's kindergarten year. Like we literally started all over.
wow.
But for us, it was the stress of parenting. It was years of putting everything but each other first.
Oh, absolutely.
I would say it was for me, and I know this in retrospect because I dove into understanding marriage. But when a woman is not in touch with her feminine energy and she takes on masculine energy and tries to control, it's interesting because men will flip too. If a woman goes into her masculine and take charge, logic brain versus her intuitive, soft, loving, nurturing, powerful, wise role, there's an imbalance and a disharmony that can happen not only in the marriage and in the home, but in herself. And that makes each other less attractive to each other. That
Hmm.
makes, makes you less attractive to each other. Because and I teach this with, I actually have a Fix Your Marriage in 40 Days course that I did with my partner Dimple in the UK. Her name is Dimple, and she actually has dimples, but she lives in England. And we've both been married 25 years. We both are strong women in business who almost divorced our husbands. So we created this Fix Your Marriage in 40 Days. Well, she taught me that, and she's a celebrity love coach, and she has really done her homework and how this imbalance happens with couples. She said there's 3 C's that men do not want from a woman: to be coached, controlled, or criticized. And that's just like emasculating to him, to be kind of mothered or coached, or well, you should do this or you should do that, or criticized, because he takes it all like he might have this tough exterior, but his little boy self is like feeling super wounded or emasculated. And that creates a lot of tension. Now, for women, we have the 3 U's. If we feel unsafe, unheard, or unseen, if we don't feel like he's hearing us, we don't feel like he's seeing us, truly seeing us from the soul level, and we feel unsafe, like if he has a temper or he's doing something that threatens the attachment, then we will shut down. Most all couples are dealing with this interplay. It's just being aware, again, aware of it, so that you're not letting all that subconscious energy just drive the behavior, and you're all just triggering each other. Boom, 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 boom. But for that woman who's hurting, here's what I'll say to her. You know, in your soul, you deeply know and feel what your next right step is. It might be to separate and not end the marriage. My husband and I were separated 10 months, the best thing we ever did, because we knew and felt that we loved each other and we wanted to be together, not just because we had children, not just because we had two and a half decades behind us, but because we truly, truly loved each other. And we fought to come back together. But that woman, as women, and men too, but women can access their knowing more quickly. We can access our feelings and our emotions and our embodied wisdom a lot more efficiently than a man. It takes him longer to get in and really figure out what's happening. You call it maternal intuition or a feminine way of knowing. But when a woman gets still and she gets her journal out, she lights a candle and she does some deep breathing, she puts on some inspirational music, things will flow. I will say, be the buffalo, but still be still, right?
Right.
Like we have to come into our spiritual center, our heart, our body temple, because the answers are there. I would also add to what you were saying, just that she is strong enough. She may not think she is, to set a line in the sand or a boundary, or to say, I don't want to live this way anymore. It might be, I'm going to do everything that I can to heal this marriage. And that might mean we separate. It might mean we don't. It might mean we go get help. But buffaloes are in herds. We need each other. We need help. And it is not a sign of weakness to go get help. And if there's a resistance, with him, I would say, to getting that help, that's when you know that you have to take care of yourself and be safe, and do what you need to do. But if he has willingness, then you have a lot. That's gold. Like, you both have willing hearts, and so there's a lot that you can do to heal.
You know, that's interesting. Your 3 C's. They don't want to be coached, controlled, or criticized. And I can just admit to you that I've done all 3.
Oh man. Well, that's what strong women, that's what we do.
That's what we do. You know, and my husband and I have had these conversations where, you know, he said, Cherie, you can be such a control freak. And I don't disagree with that at all. And I do try to just let go of things that really don't matter, because he said, you know, to criticize, to give advice is one thing and to criticize is another, right? So I usually will give him advice when it's unsolicited. So that comes out to be criticism. So I have learned to not give advice unless I'm asked for that advice. And then that way it actually comes across the way I intended it in the first place. Because, you know, the one thing that he'll say to me is, I don't need a mother. And so I'm like, you know, you're right. You don't need me to act as your mother. So why am I giving you advice like I do my 19-year-old son, right? He doesn't need it. He's a strong man. He's smart. He's good at what he does. And, you know, I don't need that, but it's me. It's not him. It's the part of me that feels like everything will go a lot better if I can just control it, because therefore it will be perfect. And that is that strong woman in me, because I do have a lot of confidence in what I do. And I do feel very empowered, and through the Lord, I do feel that what I do is guidance and direction through Him that He gives me. So when I have a thought in my head, I feel like, okay, if that's from God, I need to get it out. When a lot of times He's telling me to shut my mouth.
Yeah.
And I don't listen. I mean, I've heard Him tell me, be quiet and be still. Be quiet and be still. And I'm like, really? You sure? You sure you want me to be quiet and be still? Because I really feel like I need to speak right now. And so that's taken some time, but I have learned to actually listen and be quiet and be still when I need to be. And
It's
some
so
people,
hard.
it is so
Like,
hard, girl.
people
I'm
says
telling you.
like, just take duct tape. Pretend like there's just
I
duct
know.
tape, like putting it across your mouth.
I know. I have some really cute zebra print duct tape, and I'm going to put it on my desk to remind me sometimes to just get a piece of tape out and put it over my mouth when I need to. But I've actually,
If we ask a man something, especially if it's emotionally based, it takes him a while to
right.
act. So
Yes.
we just have to zip it and he'll get there.
He'll
And
get
when he
there.
does, things come out that we're just like, whoa. Then need that time to just access what's really happening. And it's like we're just like, because we can just keep going. I mean, and they feel inadequate. They
Right.
feel inadequate that way.
Well, and then what happens is if they don't say exactly what we want them to say at that time, then it goes into one of our views of feeling unheard. It's
Yes,
not that we're unheard, we're just not necessarily agreeing with their answer or what they have to say.
exactly. And the communication breakdown happens when we feel so wounded because they're not really here. We want them to be a woman.
Right.
We want them to notice everything and express everything,
Right.
and uh and celebrating the differences between us is part of the path to healing,
Right.
because we think we want him to be a woman, but
Right.
we want him to be a strong man
Right.
and
Right.
protect us and
Exactly.
honor us and be like, we want to be Guinevere and have him and knight him King Arthur, and he will do that all day long. He knows that we are not coaching, criticizing, or closing him down.
We're going to flip a little bit and we're going to talk about the queen aspect, because what really caught my attention as Mrs. Utah 2004. So I'm a pageant girl myself.
Okay.
So I was a pageant girl from 12 years old all the way up to 19. And then my dad challenged me in the Mrs. division after I had Christine and Bryant. So I was in Mrs. division, and I was second runner up, get this, in every single competition. I was like, so I'm good enough, but not that good.
Oh, well, hey, I was always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I have a whole story with that. But what state is it?
Well, I
Louisiana?
was actually in Tennessee at the time.
Tennessee.
So I was in Mrs. Nashville, and I went to Mrs. Tennessee and was
Uh-huh.
second runner up in both of those competitions.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I
That's
said, you know
awesome.
what? I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. And that was a long time ago. That was, way before my 19-year-old was even born. It was with my first marriage that I did the
Uh-huh.
Mrs. competitions. But I know what it takes. It takes a lot to basically have the courage and go back up there, especially
Yeah.
in the Mrs. competition. So congratulations to you and your confidence
Yeah.
to be able to do that. But you talk a lot about, you mentor and you speak about being queenly, or the queenly secrets. So let
Yeah.
us in on some of your secrets and
Mm.
talk about being queenly.
Yeah, well, I have three mantras: graciousness, poise, and confidence. And if you want to have graciousness, poise, and confidence, that is being in your feminine energy. That is to a man, and really you'll be attractive to everyone. Everyone will want to learn from you. But to that is your feminine energy, is to have graciousness, poise, and confidence. And it doesn't mean that every woman exhibits it the same way. But it's literally like, stop. There's another mantra: stop, breathe, receive. And this is a
Mm,
mantra I say to myself literally 3 or 4 times a day. When I move at half speed and I have a stress response and I'm triggered or I'm doing whatever, so the brain will go into fight, fight, freeze. We'll either fight through it, we'll flee, like we'll bail and just stuff it, or we will freeze up. and we'll go into like paralysis. So when you stop, breathe, and receive, what you're doing is you're opening yourself to an answer you're not seeing. So that could look like praying or surrender or whatever. If
Mm,
you're breathing, you're you're literally like riding on your breath. I did a 200-hour teacher training with my daughter who's now 21. We did it together. She became a yoga instructor. I just did it to do it with her. But we learned about the value of, and the ancient yogis knew this, of breathing, accessing spirit through the breath, and then just getting in your body, getting in, like
mhm,
fully being here, like present with yourself. And there's so much power in that. So the queenliness, the women who walk as queens, metaphorically or physically, I guess, are in their bodies. They're reigning in their body temple. They're there. They're not deferring to everyone. Is this okay? What do you think about this? It's like, no, I know this is my next step.
mm,
And there's a confidence to that. They've done sociological studies, and not to keep bringing it back to men, but they've done sociological studies and research. And I actually minored in sociology when I was getting my psych degree. And I remember this when I was going to school, that they did a huge longitudinal study. And the most attractive thing to a man was confidence, a woman having confidence.
I've heard that
No matter
before.
what she looks like, if she's in her skin and she loves herself and she honors herself, that is like a man will attach to a woman, just not even consciously, because that is so grounding to him and so powerful for him. And so women are attracted to strength and men are attracted to confidence. And it's kind of the same thing. The queenliness around that is just, I know who I am, I know where I'm going. And I would add to that, for spiritual people or religious or whatever, I know whose I am. And
I like that.
so a queen can walk in that knowledge. Now, lest you think I walked on a stage and won a beauty pageant the first go round, let me just tell you, I was second runner up. I was third runner up. I was top 10. I had to compete 6 times before I won. The time I did win, I had tapped into something through a mentor who took me into like really understanding the value of being me and doing, not modeling the queen before or doing this or that, but being me.
Right,
And I won swimsuit, I won onstage question, I won evening gown, I won judge's interview. I swept the whole pageant. I don't say that out of ego, but it was my
right.
sixth pageant. I was 35, my first runner up was 21. She'd never had children. I'd had 4 at that time. And that was 16 years ago. I've learned a lot since then. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know that I would ever, like, I have mixed feelings about pageants. I think people can go in with a good intent or an off balance intent. But
right.
the point is, it taught me that when I'm myself and I'm authentic, that shines through. That essence shines through, whether I'm on a panel in front of a judges on a stage or I'm at the grocery store.
Mhm.
Or I'm with my children at home. It doesn't matter. Being in my skin and being who I am and knowing whose I am is, to me, the best queenly secret that there is.
Cherie, I'm telling you, that is so true. 100%. I have, I preach it that if you are not being your true, authentic self, and people say that over and over, you have to be authentic, you have to be real, you have to be good. But I'm telling you, if you are not being who you are, who God created you to be, and you're trying to be someone else,
Hmm.
it comes across that way.
Yeah.
And you don't feel settled in your spirit. So it's one thing to have for someone to perceive you as being unauthentic, because I also talk about other people's labels and perceptions of you are not your reality. However, if you are being unauthentic and someone is perceiving you as being unauthentic and you know that you are, then it's the damage is to you,
Right.
because you're doing yourself an injustice. You're betraying yourself by not being who you are, because we were all created to be unique in God's creation. And in order for us to be able to help each other, we're all going to go, as women, we'll all go through different struggles. And the idea is, if someone's going through a divorce and someone else has a death, and then someone else has issues with addiction for their children, or something like that, and then you come across other women that are actually going through those same things, but you've gone through those trials and tribulations and you have conquered or figured out the secret to get through of those things. Your job as a woman is to reach out to that woman that God puts in front of you to teach them and guide them.
Right.
That's what God has done for us.
That's the
So
whole entire reason you went through it.
exactly the whole entire reason. And believe me, I've been mad enough to say, God, I don't want to be your mentor and coach. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be your messenger, because in order to be the messenger, I have to go through too much heartache. I don't want to be the one that has to talk to the moms that have lost their kids. And he said, I chose you because I have confidence in you and you're strong enough. And when you think that you're not, I'm going to give you the strength so that you are. After Bryant passed away, I wrote for 7 years in a journal, and it turned into Wake Up Call, a Mother's Grief Journey, which was published in 2014. And from that book, I ended up with Fox News at my door, and NBC, and put me on the news. And then I was on the front of the paper, and then I was invited to speaking
Wow.
events. And I thought, what is happening right now? Like, what, this is like my world just
Mhm.
completely changed. And I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. I don't want to be the mother that has to help these other mothers, because I know they are being tormented right now. And he said, you
Yeah.
are the one to help these other mothers. Who else
Mhm.
is going to do it? And so I found myself helping mothers. And then I found myself being asked questions about, I've lost my sister, I've lost my parent, I've lost this, I'm going through a divorce, I'm going through, and I thought, hold on, hold on. I'm in brain overload right here. What am I supposed to say to this person? Because at the time I'd never lost a parent. I don't know how that feels. I can
Mhm.
imagine how it feels. You can imagine what it's like to lose a child, but until you've walked in my shoes, you have no idea. So what I
Right.
did is, when I went and got my certification in grief and learned adversity recovery, it was to the point, and being in the medical background and a nurse for many years, but being in the business corporate world for the last 15, I thought, you know what, I can't speak from just experience. I have to speak a little bit from education. And so I wanted to be able to speak from a standpoint of understanding what grief was. And it goes back to what we were talking about in divorce. Divorce is grief, because
Uh-huh.
your Christmases are no longer the same. Your Saturday mornings are different. You know, everything, your nights, your whole life is different at that point. If
Yeah.
you've been married for a long time, people grieve after divorce. They grieve when they lose a business, when they've lost their best friend, relationships. They have turmoil between their parents and themselves. And there's a lot of reasons why we grieve, but grief is basically just the root of emotional pain. It's just the
Mhm.
pain of loss. Doesn't have to be through death. It's the pain of loss. And when you go through those stages, like you were saying, I've been through those stages of grief, and we all go through them differently at different times, but we all eventually go through them. Getting to the last stage of acceptance is actually, I wish they would change that word to peace, because once you
Yeah.
accept what you're in, you're actually inviting peace into your life. And then you can start the second part of grief, which is called the remaking of life. Yeah, the first part
Mhm.
is the stages. The second part is remaking of your new normal. And to be able to do that, you've actually, I'll never accept the fact that my son's gone, but I can,
Right.
God gives me a peace knowing that he's taking care of my son and that I will see him again. That's where my peace comes from.
I love that. I think, to add to what you're saying, that we would never go through grief if we didn't love.
Mm,
So for me, it's all about love. The more you love, the more it hurts when you lose that person or that situation, that marriage or whatever.
right.
The child, I've lost a child, and I can tell you, it's earth shattering. It's, your world explodes. When I lost my sister, it was actually the year I was Mrs. Utah, and she was in her worst time, and I was quote unquote in my best. And she actually called me the day before she took her life and left her 5 babies and went to a hotel room and overdosed. We grieve so much and we hurt so much because we love so much.
Mm-hmm.
And accessing the love, like you said, the completion cycle is when you come back and you let that love for your son or the love for whoever, even if it's a failed marriage,
Right.
there was still love there. And you let that love transform your life and the good in it. Going back to gratitude, like, what can I take from this? That person who shone such a light, was such a lighthouse in my life, this child or this person, or for someone who's lost a job. I know with COVID, there's a lot of displacement happening, a lot of transition. There is a
Mm-hmm.
lot of grief in this planet. There's racial injustice, there's gender disparity, there's, oh my gosh, my kids are getting ready to go back to school in a couple of weeks. My 3 college kids and 2 elementary kids. And it's like nothing's the same. We're all
Mhm.
masking up and doing Zoom for school and other things. And it's like there's grief there too,
Oh, very
you
much,
know.
because I
So
believe that we're missing the human touch and the human
yes, connection.
connection,
Yeah.
which helps us be able to express our love. And it goes back to love. And I know my mother probably understands, I go and see her and make sure that she's doing okay, but I don't hug her. I keep my
Mhm.
distance because she has a compromised immune system from recovering from cancer many years ago. And I stay at a distance when I'm in her house. But it's hard because you want to hug on them and love on people that you care about, but instead we're walking around doing elbow bumps and fist pumps with people, and we're not able to hug and love
Yeah. And
each other.
we can't see people's smiles.
No, we cover up our smiles, and
Mhm.
it's really sad. It's sad that this is the time that we're in, but the Bible says this too shall pass. And I hope that even in everything that everybody is going through, going back to gratitude, I am still grateful for
Mhm.
everything that I have had. I've been fortunate enough to not lose any income during the situation, and I understand the gratitude of that. I understand the gift that I've been given with that. I've actually been able to record more because I've my
I've never
traveling
been
slow.
busier since COVID.
Yeah, you've never been busier. It's been super busy, but we also have learned that I was doing Zoom a long time before this ever started, but now everybody's on Zoom. So you think
Mhm.
about some of the companies that actually have prospered in this pandemic, and those that have shut down. And it's exactly what happened during Hurricane Katrina here in South Louisiana, where I live. Is there were so many companies that prospered and flourished and became multimillionaires. The fence companies, all the fences blew down, and so somebody had to put them back up. So there were people that actually became millionaires from that tragedy, and then those that lost everything and have had a difficult time rebuilding. And I think that's just the way it works. That's the way the world works. You have to kind of find your path. And there's people that have taken this bad situation and started making masks, and they've become very wealthy from the woman at home that was just doing a little alterations. There's several
Mhm.
on Etsy now that can't keep up with the demand. And we
Mhm.
don't know what was happening in that person's life, but now God has used this tragedy to actually help her flourish. So there's always the yin and the yang and the good and the bad that comes out of everything. But I think God uses everything for the good and the glory. And we don't always see it at that moment, but we will see it maybe a month down the road, 2 months down the road, maybe 2 years down the road. You'll look
And it's
back and
not
go,
always
ah,
extrinsic. Yeah, it's not always like, "Oh, there was this tragedy and this happened." It might just be there was this tragedy and I became galvanized as a human. I
mm,
accessed my compassion. I up leveled. It's not like I got something out here extrinsically, but inside I became different.
right,
And that's the power of losing something is
right.
you find something in yourself.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you. And I think that if you would allow yourself to stop, like you said, just stop just a second, stop and be still, stop, be still, and listen, you can actually learn your lesson. You can find your lesson in whatever tragedy that you're going through at that time. Once you get over the anger phase, you can be still just a minute and listen and find out what your lesson is in whatever tragedy that you're going through. Well, Cherie, I appreciate you so much. I really do. Thank you so much for coming on Real Girl Talk. Tell everybody a little bit about you, where we can find you, and programs that you're
Yeah.
working on or you have to offer.
My name is spelled just like yours, Cherie, but it's Cherie Burton.com, CherieBurton.com. I have a free little mini healing kit people can download. It's got a guided meditation, a fun recipe, a couple books that I love, just some yummy, nourishing, soul drenching stuff. I have actually a new Feminine Boss School 12-week course. You can read all about it on my website, but it's just a fun 12-week course on goddess confidence, finding your soul path, whether you want to start a business or a hobby or whatever, and then balancing it with motherhood or family life. I run an international business. I travel to 4 continents a year, 4 countries, not 4 continents. I did before COVID anyway. And all this while being a mom and trying to follow my soul nothing about me is in the box. Everything's out of the box. So I teach how to do that. Still love yourself, love your family, and love your work in the world. So those are my offerings. And I do have a podcast called Women Seeking Wholeness. I'll have to have you on as a guest. It would be fun.
I would love to do
share
that.
Your story.
I've got a lot of stories. Let's see. What do you want to talk about? Death, divorce, financial bankruptcy. I can talk about all of them and how to overcome those adversities. I've got, that's a whole separate book. You'd think I would get that written right now, but yeah. Well, thank you so much, Cherie. Where can we find you on social media?
So I'm on Instagram, Cherie.Burton, and you can find me on Facebook, Women Seeking Wholeness. And either one of those, you'll find me. And it's just fun to stay connected with women of like mind and heart who want to show up in the world and heal it. So I attract a lot of other women who are on that path.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I really, really do.
Thank you.
Guys, listen, I want you to follow Cherie Burton. She's empowered me this morning. So I know that she's empowered you. And if you really want to send any messages, or if you've got anything out of the podcast today, take a screenshot of this podcast and share it on your social media. Make sure you tag Cherie and myself, Real Girl Talk Podcast. And until next week, I want you to step outside your comfort zone, keep your faith in God, and walk in the guidance of His light. And I will be praying for you.
The loss of a loved one is a nearly universal emotional crisis. Unprocessed grief and painful feelings can be buried, leaving you to feel numb. But there is hope. Certified grief counselor, RN, and author Cherie Burton shares her story of how to cope in her first book, Wake Up Call, A Mother's Grief Journey, after the loss of her 17-year-old son. This book, along with Cherie's other books, are available on Amazon as well as on CherieRicard.com.